Tomorrow is a day that's going to take us back in time. Tomorrow's January 29th. And on January 29th, 2017, there was an attack on a mosque in Quebec City. So tomorrow takes us back to that moment. And hopefully tomorrow also takes us forward at the same time. Because tomorrow was declared a National Day of Remembrance for the victims of that mosque shooting, for the survivors, for their families. And tomorrow being a National Day of Remembrance allows us to continue a conversation that we are going to continue to have until, as we keep talking about, we find a way to be on the same team on this earth. Joining us right now to talk about this is Fareed Khan. Fareed, thank you so much for taking some time for us.
Well, thank you for having me back, Mike.
Let's first off look at the declaration of a day of action. When you first found out that that was happening, what were conversations you were involved in about that?
Well, I think one of the first reactions and conversations that were had in the Muslim community is, well, thank you very much for recognizing it, but the government could have acted sooner, because the call to declare this Day of Remembrance and Day of Action started in the same year that the shootings happened at the Quebec City Mosque. And the declaration did not happen until spring of last year, in April, when there was an official proclamation declared to name those days. So I think the generally speaking, it was, thank you for doing this, but we would have liked to have it happen sooner, given that there has been a continual increase in Islamophobia in the country.
Well, that's just it. We can go back well beyond the incident and the tragedy in 2017, and the discussion, sure, can be there, and now there's almost a name to a day, and that urges us to do something. But Fareed, overall, does this day get more meaning? Do you think we'll have more conversations? Do you think it'll have a bigger impact because it now has a name?
I think to a certain extent it will, because certainly when shows like yours and other news media cover this story and talk about this Day of Remembrance and this Day of Action, I think it causes people in the broader population to think about not only the day that the tragedy happened, but also causes people to take a look around them and say, well, what's happening in my community? What's happening in my neighborhood and the schools that my children go to around issues of Islamophobia or other forms of hate. And it makes people think, and hopefully it encourages them to not only speak out when they see acts of hate or words of hate being thrown about, but also to possibly get involved in their community and get to know their neighbors who look different from them.
Fareed Khan joining us from Canadians United Against Hate as we look at tomorrow, which has been declared a National Day of Remembrance, National Day of Action, and that is dating back to 2017 and the Quebec City Mosque attack that occurred. Now, Fareed, you mentioned speaking out, because we can have conversations, but we do need action. And one of the things that has been suggested in so many ways is, let's stop letting things just slide by. If somebody says something and it's not right, it has to be pointed out. We've got to call each other on that so that we realize, or that we know, that's not acceptable in our society. Do you think we are getting to a point where action is happening, or are we still at the conversation point?
That's actually a difficult question to ask. Muslims are the only faith community whose members have been murdered just for being. Like, in the last 5 years, there have been more Muslims killed in hate attacks in Canada than in all other G7 nations combined. And that says something. There is obviously a a greater effort to try and address this. Obviously, from my activities, I see a lot more people, especially on social media, speaking out and getting involved in events or activities where they can engage with the Muslim community. But there's also been a rising tide of racism and white supremacy and targeting of Muslims, not only on social media, but in the real world. And that's the thing that is worrying for not just Muslims, but obviously for other Canadians as well, is that how can we have this dichotomy where, on the one hand, we are trying to take action to undo this hate, but at the same time, we're seeing rising incidents of hate that are happening, targeting Muslims. This convoy of trucks that's coming down the road to Ottawa tomorrow. There are people with hateful ideologies and white supremacist ideologies that have attached themselves to that, and they're going to be in town expressing those views. And while they do have a right to their opinion, doesn't make their opinion the right thing. And so that's the sort of thing that we have to challenge and stand up against, not only vocally but by actions through in various fashions.
We're talking with Fareed Khan with Canadians United Against Hate, and tomorrow, sure, there's been a lot of focus on that protest in Ottawa. Tomorrow, there is also an event that is going to help to draw attention to January 29th. What is it like to know that those two things are taking place on the same day?
Well, unfortunately, because of the location of the event, which is adjacent to Ottawa City Hall, it's on Ottawa City Hall property, we learned earlier today that all the environs around Ottawa City Hall are going to be locked down, and therefore we've been forced to cancel the event in Ottawa because of this protest, because of threats of violence. Now, obviously, we are disappointed here in Ottawa, but there are events taking place in different communities across the country, including in London. There's actually a London Remembers event marking the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Islamophobia that is taking place both as a in-person event and live streamed at 4 p.m. Through the London Mosque. If people are interested in participating in some way, they can go to the London Mosque website and find the information there. So that's at 4 p.m. tomorrow, and it's being organized by the London Mosque.
Thank you for that information. We're talking with Fareed Khan of Canadians United Against Hate about tomorrow, January 29th, which is a National Day of Remembrance, National Day of Action as well, as we confront Islamophobia, which does exist in our society. And Fareed, maybe to close out, we began talking about the federal government and how they had an opportunity a long time ago, in 2017, before 2017, to do something, whether it was to mark a date, whether it was to go even further than that, perhaps legislation. And now we've had discussions over legislation, and we've had legislation introduced. What do you see from that standpoint that may assist us in this society?
Well, the government has designated I forget the official title, but an ambassador or something along those lines to tackle Islamophobia, similar to one that is for anti-Semitism, an official government-designated person. That's a move in the right direction. But there needs to be a lot more. There needs to be. We have been calling on the government to do this for years, and that is to undertake a nationally led, coordinated with the provinces, anti-hate strategy to tackle Islamophobia and all other forms of hate that have been on the rise for more than a decade. Similar in the way that we're dealing with a COVID-19 pandemic, there's been a pandemic of hate in this country for many, many, many years, and it requires a concerted effort with decisive actions to tackle it. What we've been seeing over the last number of years is actions that are piecemeal. They are in reaction to something happening. We need a more coordinated approach by the federal government, and we need provincial governments involved as well, given the roles that they play in their jurisdictions. And we need to do this sooner rather than later. And it's only if Canadians pressure their MPs and their provincial legislators to take action that this sort of thing will happen, because we've been waiting far too long. We've seen far too much death and attacks on racialized communities, and that needs to change if we want to have the sort of inclusive and diverse society that I think we all value.
Hey, exactly. Fareed, thank you so much for your words. Thank you so much for the actions that you take, and thank you for your time today. Keep safe.
Thank you very much, Mike. Hope to talk to you again.
Hope so. That is Fareed Khan of Canadians United Against Hate. So do take some time tomorrow. Do take some time tomorrow to reflect, to remember the victims of the mosque shooting, to think about those little things that maybe just pass by us, that it's time to call them out if we don't already. And it's time to find a way to get ourselves more united as on the same team. It really is. I don't know how we get there because, again, we have pushed so far in so many directions, but my dad always used to talk about the pendulum swinging back and forth. It swings really far one way, and then it comes on back, and you can look throughout history, and that's exactly what you will find. It's time for that pendulum to swing back away from the division and the polarization that has existed and continues to exist in our world.